For the first part of the webinar, the audio and video will be just one way while I'm presenting. During question and answer time, I'll provide instructions on how to ask questions. Chat questions are welcome anytime and will be answered during Q&A. So my name is David Tierney, and I'm a web designer. I've been making websites for about 10 years, about 8 of which is on the WordPress platform. I build websites, support websites, maintain websites, host websites, kind of do it all. And I welcome anybody to contact me after this for future questions if you have. This webinar is for how to take your website to be secure over HTTPS using what's typically called an SSL certificate, but what is actually more technically, the SSL technology has actually changed and now it's actually called TLS, but you could still ask for an SSL certificate when you get one. And so the first thing that you will do is actually order an SSL certificate. And to do that, typically whoever you're hosting with can contact your hosting provider, and your hosting provider will sell you an SSL certificate and install the SSL certificate for you. And that is the typical way that it's done. You can buy an SSL certificate from a third party that's not your hosting company. And if you do that, then your host can oftentimes, but not always, check with your host first, can install it for you, but they'll charge you a little bit of money. And when you add up the installation cost and buying it from a third party, it's usually about, around the same price as just having your hosting company install it themselves. Sometimes you can buy a certificate for 1 year only, and other times you can buy it for multiple years, which is certainly beneficial, so you don't have to go through this every year. And oftentimes there'll be a slight discount on getting 2 or 3 years as opposed to just getting 1 year, because the installation is once and then it expires. And as far as keeping track of when it expires, you can talk to the person who's installing it for you, whether they keep track of that and automatically renew, or if they'll let you know, or if you just need to keep track of it yourself. And I'll show you in a little bit how to check the information on your SSL certificate. Let's see, what else about SSL certificates? So let's take a look at, move this down a little bit so that I can see it with my Zoom controllers. So the reason that we're doing this webinar now is because in April of 2017, Google announced, and Google created the Chrome browser, which right now constitutes 76% of desktop usage, which means that 76% of the people who are visiting your website from a desktop are using Chrome, and those people will run into this problem on your website unless it's fixed. And it's not necessarily a problem, it's just a proactive security update that Google is doing with their Chrome browser. And essentially what they're doing is that they have already implemented such that if you have a login page or like a checkout page on your website and it's not over HTTPS, which is this part up here, does not have an SSL certificate installed and is not running at HTTPS, then what would happen is that you would have then right up here where it's green and says secure, it would say not secure. It would sort of open up and say not secure to let users know that your data is not secure. And what does an SSL certificate do? It actually just encrypts your user's input. So when they type something into your website, it encrypts that data as it's sent back and forth between the servers, so that if somebody is sneaking and prying in on the activity of the internet, of the browser, then they won't be able to see what you're typing in because it's encrypted. And so, and that's really the biggest benefit and the purpose of having an SSL certificate. So what Google Chrome is doing on Friday, in 2 days, is that they are making it so that any place on a website, such as if you have a search box on your website and you were to begin to enter something in to the search box, if you do not have an active SSL certificate up here, then it will come up and it'll say not secure. Before it was only if you, it would only happen if somebody was on a like a login page or shopping cart or something like that. But now they're going to do it for any field. So common fields might be contact forms on contact pages. If somebody wants to leave a comment on your blog, if somebody wants to use the search field, if they want to register through one of your email opt-in forms, anything like that, then it's gonna bring up the not secure on your website. Why does that matter? Because people, it's going to affect the credibility of your website. If somebody's on there and they see not secure, they're going to be hesitant to engage with your website, and that's not what we want, pretty much. So let's take a look. So one of the best tools that I use, and that I think is very commonly used to look at a couple of things that we're going to look at, is if you're in Chrome. And actually, this is also the case with most popular browsers, such as Firefox or Safari. If you right-click over your page anywhere, you'll get some options. And if you're on a Mac, you will actually hold down Control and click somewhere. And there's an option to inspect, and it'll open up what's called the inspector, and it gives you some tools so that we can look at two things specifically. A lot of things you can look at, and in some other tutorials in the future, I'll show you how to look at your CSS for your website and edit it. But right now, we're going to go to the security tab here, and we can see here that it tells us the information about the certificate. We can even click to view the certificate. We can see who it's issued by. We can see when it expires. And so that is helpful, and we can see that, and that's why this green bar is showing up here. It says secure. So that's the first thing you do. And so when you order your SSL certificate, it will probably take a day or two for your depending on getting your host to install it. And you can, if they don't notify you, this is one way you can check and see if it's installed. So you can go to your website and you can right-click and get this inspector up. And it may show up on the side of your web page or on the bottom. You can change how it's displayed. I think here, dock at the bottom or to the left to the right. And what you can do is, so what I'm going to do in this tutorial is I'm actually going to walk us through updating this website, which is one of mine. And you can see it doesn't have, typed in HTTPS. When you actually go to the website, it looks like this. Well, so a website that does not have HTTPS in front of it, has a certificate, will typically just show up like this. It won't actually show the HTTPS part of it. It'll just show the domain name. And so what we're going to do is we can look here on security. We can see this page is not secure. And so you can do this with any website. And you can do this with yours when you're wondering, has my certificate been installed? And if it has, I want to take a look at the certificate. You can just type in HTTPS : / and your domain name, hit the return key, and now your website is running through HTTPS, but it's because I've actually installed your certificate on this website, but it's not green and it's not saying secure. And you can see here I have a valid certificate. This certificate is valid, and yet, but it's not saying secure. And so that's going to be the next step. So we know that now the certificate is installed, and once you've done that part, the next step is to make your website so that it will work with your SSL certificate. So what we can do then is go over to what's called the console tab here. And what we're going to notice here is a whole bunch of errors, and they're all going to start with mixed content. And for example, this will say mixed content. The page at HTTPS builtforconsultants.com was loaded over HTTPS, but requested an insecure image. And so here's the image. And you can see here that the image is at HTTP and not HTTPS. And it says this content should also be viewed over HTTPS. So this is the typical problem you're going to run across, and what needs to be fixed is that you have what's called mixed content. And mixed content means that if you're wanting your website to run over HTTPS and you have any parts of any assets in the website, images, scripts, I don't know, anything that that you've got added on, a graphic that's added on to the web page that doesn't have a link that has the S in the HTTP part means that the page isn't secure because it has things on it that aren't secure. And so you have to fix that. And as a side note, if you have a link to a different page of your website or a link to another website, it's okay to have that be HTTP, because when you click on the link, it takes you to another place. So the only things that create mixed content issues are assets and things that are on this particular page, such as images and things, scripts, which is references within the code of your website that reference different things like Google Analytics code or an email opt-in script, or there's a ton of scripts that are used for special effects and all sorts of other things. So what we're going to do is the next step, the first step we're going to take in fixing this is we're going to go into into the admin area. So here we are in the WordPress admin area for Built for Consultants, and we're going to install a plugin. Just type in SSL. Oops, I typed in SLL. And you're going to find this one that's called Really Simple SSL. It's very popular. It's very highly rated. It works really well, and it's fairly straightforward. So we're going to click Install. And activate. And as soon as you click activate, you're going to get this message here, almost ready to migrate to SSL. Some things can't be done automatically. Before you migrate, please check for HTTP references in your .css and JS files. So there's a file in your theme, which, files in your theme that may have the file name .css or .js, and you can check those. But typically, when you click this button, it's going to fix most of the stuff that you need to fix. If you don't, we're gonna get into looking at some of those other things. But they mention here some of the other things that you might run into: images on your website, style sheets, which is part of your theme files that end in .css, scripts, which might end in JS, for example. So you'll have to remove them or move them to their own server. You can also let the automatic scan of the Pro version handle this. I haven't actually tried that yet. If you wanted to try that, you can. I have just converted over about 5 or 6 websites in the past couple of days, and I haven't had to go in and do that for any of them yet so far. In fact, just clicking this button here was sufficient for about half of them. And so once we've done that, we can go ahead and visit our page, and we can see what it does. One of the first things it does is it's going to it's going to change the settings in your website so that your website now resides at HTTPS. And if you get rid of the S, it's going to bring it right back. So it forces your website to be at this location. So if anybody tries to just go there without that, it's going to add it in automatically. It's going to redirect it to that. And if we look at we can refresh here. I was in this browser window. Interesting. So we got one browser tab that says it's all good and the other one not. Okay, so we can see that there's still a couple of things left, which is probably what we're running into here. So we've got it's fixed most of these, and there's still two things here. There's two images which are being loaded via HTTP, and they still need to be fixed. And we can take a look at some of the other pages. And they seem to be fine. Just reloading. And that's what you're going to want to do, is you're going to probably want to visit a representative selection of your website pages. If you've got 5 or 10 pages, just go through them all and take a look and see if you get this green secure up there. If you've got a huge website with lots of blog posts and things, then I would say, just go through a half a dozen of them and check and see. All right, so now because we still have a few more, because we still had those two images, so we have two options at this point. One is we can go into the admin area and we can see right here what the images are. And again, we can right-click on here, and for example, I can open this image. If I right-click over that, I can open it in a new window, and it'll help me see which image it is. Okay, it's that one. So one option you have is that you can go into your admin area for your website, and you can change the image, just basically reload the image. If you go in WordPress, if you just go into the select the image and re-add it from the media library, it will automatically add the HTTPS on the front of it. And in the future, it's also helpful to know, in the future, because your website's now running as HTTPS, all images and everything that you add will be added with the S on the end. So you'll be good to go. So what we're doing is we're just kind of cleaning up what's left over. And also, you can notice we lost the admin bar up here. And what happens is that we get locked out when we click to install that plugin. So I'm going to log myself back in again. By the way, I've changed this from WP admin to a different location for security's sake, and it's a good idea to get a plugin that does that. Okay, so now we're going to go back to plugins, and we're going to install another plugin, which, when we type in SSL and search, is the other one with the top results up here, SSL Insecure Content Fixer. So we're going to try this one. So if you don't need this, if all of your pages after that installation of this plugin did the job, then you're good to go. If you've got a problem like this, then this is the second plugin that I recommend that you install. They work very well, and so it's installed. Here it is. It's installed automatically, and its default settings typically will take care of a lot of problems. Bingo. So you can see that those two images were automatically fixed with just the basic default settings of this second plugin. And that's been my my experience with a lot of websites, that between these two, that they will take care of a lot of what needs to be done. And so the settings for this one, SSL insecure content, it starts out with simple, and if that doesn't work, you can take a look and try out some of these more advanced settings that may fix other things. But typically, those two plugins will do a lot. I did have an example for with one website that I was doing where I had a reference to an Aweber script. So I was using a plugin, a client was using Aweber as their email opt-in service, and the plugin that was being used was was outdated and had places in the plugin code which were not properly referencing their script at HTTPS. And if you've got a problem like that, and that may certainly happen, then again, what you would do is, if you're looking in the console here, you would just look at the reference, and where in the two that we were just looking at, it said, it's this image. Instead, it will say it's a script, at aweber.com, and so that gives it away that it's Aweber, and then you can go in and you can look at your plugins, and you can identify the plugin that is related to what it is that you have. Take the name of the plugin, open up a new browser, and find that plugin and go into the support. Let's see, which one was it? I don't remember which one it was. Oh, actually, it was this one. And you can see it's got 2 stars. So this was the plugin that my client had. And so what you would do in that case, if you have a plugin that is that has a script that the plugin itself isn't done properly, you have 2 options. One is to go to the support section, and you can look down and you can see if anybody's commented on the fact that here's insecure code and still insecure, please fix, and it was fixed. And it turned out that I put this, that was me, I actually put in a support request for the guy to fix it, and it turned out that he had just released like an hour earlier an update to his plugin, and he specifically had fixed that. And you can see that for plugins, maybe a little bit beyond most people's interest, but if you go to the development tab for any of the WordPress.org plugin pages, it'll show you the change log, which is basically what they've changed. And you can see here, he changed HTTP to HTTPS in the URL for the forms. So he had fixed this, and this was just done, 2 days ago. You can see this is when he did that version. So that is one option if you have a plugin that is the problem. And the second option is to replace the plugin. So if this guy who made this plugin wasn't updating it, then and you tried to contact him and you saw here that maybe he wasn't responding to comments, then the thing to do would be to just replace the plugin and find another one. And so in this case, you would look for another plugin that would integrate, or another way to integrate Aweber with your website. And that may be the case in some instances, is that if you have plugins that are not supported properly, they weren't coded properly to begin with, then you may potentially run into that, and that's really your best solution. Let's see. Another tool that may or may not be useful is a plugin called Better Search and Replace. If you, in the case where we had the image on my website, which was not properly putting the S at the end of HTTP, if you have a huge website with a lot of those and your insecure content, this plugin didn't fix it. Another option is, which is a little bit more advanced, is to use the Better Search and Replace plugin, which will allow you through your admin, through an interface, a friendly interface in your admin area, to actually search for HTTP. And you would want to put HTTP : you would search for that, because if you just put HTTP, then it's going to search and it's going to find HTTPS as well. But if you put HTTP : then it's going to find any place where you've got just the HTTP, and then you can replace it with HTTPS : and it will actually change it in the database. And there is a, I thought I had saved the tab. I'm going to bring it up. WP Beginner is a really great website with a lot of tutorials, and I think this is, not sure which one of these. Yeah. So there's a tutorial here at WP Tutorials. If you just type in, you go to WP Beginner and you search for how to find and replace text, you'll find this article, and it kind of walks you a little bit through how to use the plugin. Oh, actually, no, this is the one. This is the one that walks you through how to search through the database, which is a little bit more advanced. Yeah, and this is the one that shows you how to use that plugin. And so you could just, look at this, search for that name in their search bar, and you'll be able to find this article, and it will give you some tips on how to use that plugin. Just another handy plugin that I thought might be useful. So let's see, what else do I have? Okay, so the final thing I want to share is that if you have Google Analytics set up with your website, so if you have a Google account and you've gotten the Google Analytics code and you've connected with your website, whether through a plugin or not, then one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into your Google Analytics account, and I'm going to show you two places where you want to change it, because you want to tell Google Analytics where that your website is now HTTPS and not just HTTP. And so here is the, if you don't know how to get to Google Analytics, if you just go, you log into your Google account and then you just type into just type in Google Analytics. It'll give you the results right here. And when you click, it'll typically take you to a page and say, here's Google Analytics, and where do you want to go to? And you just click Analytics. Now they've got a whole bunch of analytics properties. But so what I did was I opened up the page to one of my properties, North Bay Hosting, and the two places you want to go to is underneath. There's 3 columns here listed, and once you select an account, then your properties will show up, and then you select a property and views will show up. Underneath the property column in the middle, there's property settings. So click on that. And right here it says default URL. You'll change this. I've already changed it to HTTPS. And then you'll click and go back. And then under View, you want to go to View Settings. And then right here under Website URL, again, you're going to change it from HTTP to HTTPS. And then each time you want to hit the Save button. So that's going to get your, accurately communicate with Google Analytics that your website URL has changed and is now located at a secure location. And as a side benefit of this, the search engines are, according to Google, giving you a better ranking in their search results if you have a secure website. It's one of the criteria that they are now including in their ranking criteria. So that is it for my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions and answers. And so you can raise your hand by first clicking on the participants icon at the bottom of the video. And I'm not sure if it's at the bottom or the top where the view is. And if you don't see it, just move your cursor over the video and you should see options at the top or the bottom for control, and you want to look for the participants icon. You can click on that, and then when that newly opened side panel opens up on the right, there's a button that says raise your hand at the bottom, and you can click that, and it will allow you to ask questions. And I actually just unmuted all, so if anybody wants to speak up, you're welcome to just speak up and ask a question. Do you think that'll solve it for you? Mary. Yes, Mary. Mary, I can't hear you. Is your audio on? You can start your video if you want to. You don't have to. But I just gave you permission to. I can't hear you. If you want, there was a participants tab. There's also a chat tab. You can type in your question via the chat box. I think I just prompted it, so it should show you where the chat box is. I can't hear you if you're speaking. Still can't hear you. Mary, did you see the chat box? So I sent you a chat message and to show you where it was, and I think it turns orange. It seems like maybe we're not going to be able to get that. Does anybody else have any questions? Mary, if you want to give me a call after the webinar, you can give me a call at my phone number is 707-965-9727. Oh, there you are. Just wanted to say what a great presentation. Okay, great. Thanks, Mary. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much. Let me know if you need any help when you do all this.